Well, she says, the hand mixer fell into water. What do you know? And the full sink over there. So, in this video, I'm gonna look at what are your options if the same happens to you. The hand mixer falls into water. Is it safe to dry it out? Can it be dried out somehow? Is it safe to repair it? Should it be thrown out? What are your options here? So, let's take a look at the make and model and the warning on it first, because that's an excellent place to start. This is the manufacturer there, and there's the model number. There are some other numbers there on it, but here is where we start. Do not immerse in any liquid. So let's back up a little bit. It has to be immersed in any liquid, because in the kitchen it goes into a cup of something where solids and liquids in a kitchen processor to be blended together, so it needs to be immersed. What they have in mind, of course, is do not submerge the whole thing in water, because inside there's a motor, there's electricity, there's a switch, and the case halves are not waterproof. This takes on water like the Titanic. So it leaks in water along this wavy joint here. It takes water on, this is this top cap, this is where this wire used to be going into the machine. So this is not waterproof by any stretch of imagination. And here there is a switch with this switch button here, so it's not sealed along its edges anywhere, so it takes on water in milliseconds. Once it does, what happens? Well, she noted some black juice is dripping out from it. No kidding. This black juice is everywhere inside. It's covering the plastic part and is dripping out because it's coming out of the motor. This motor lives here. This is the drive end of it that drives a shaft there. There are some other plastic components too, but roughly this lives here by and large, and is covered with a plastic cap. So on this motor, on this 120 volt AC electric motor, there are two carbon brushes. This black square chunky unit there is carbon brush 1, and here is carbon brush 2, and they are making contact with that copper rotating commutator, segmented commutator there, and so the carbon brush in contact with this commutator segment is creating carbon dust all the time, which fills everything inside the machine there. Over time, this is 7 years old, has been used for 7 years, so these carbon particles are being rinsed out as soon as it's submerged in water. So what are your options? Well, option 1, this is $10, just get a new one. Reason being is it takes on water really easily, and it's very, very difficult to dry it out. Now, in theory, if this is the last blender or mixer on earth and you really need to dry it out, dry out the upper part here, drill another 4 or 5 whatever holes in the plastic housing somewhere here, thereabouts, because the motor is, this cap is roughly there, so don't drill through that. So you have here below the switch, you can drill, I don't know, around it 4 or 5 holes, whatever size, you figure it out. You could dry it out, good luck with that. But again, this is $10, so if you get electrocuted, and there is a good chance of that, it's going to be your problem. You see, North American 120 volts is being supplied to this blender. It comes into a circuit board. On this circuit board, which is broken to smithereens due to my disassembly, there is a big copper push plate here that's operated by this plunger on the switch. So the switch, you can see where it made contact there with this copper plate. There you can see the imprint of it, whatever. So there the circuit is closed, and then electricity is supplied to the motor. Obviously this broke off from here, and this other wire was there. So on this circuit board there's nothing else other than this switch and one start capacitor. Now, should electricity, this 120 volts, make it through this switch somewhere with this a film of water covering everything, should an electricity find a path to your finger? And of course this is the kitchen, so you're standing in water, you're wet all the time, whatever you're working at the sink, it's unavoidable, and your hands are wet. So should there be a path of electricity created between the line in, or the live wire, and the neutral, and electricity would travel up through the wet components of the switch through your hands or hand, and you die, that's going to be your problem. That's why the best option is, once it's submersed in water, just say goodbye to it, throw it away, spend $10, get another one, and don't drop it in water. But again, if you really have to dry it, you can take it apart sensibly. It doesn't have to be a destructive disassembly like this is, and you could dry it out. Now, one last note, there's always going to be some water in here, even if it's never submerged, because this bearing here this is the spinning shaft, and this shaft goes through a bearing, so this is not perfectly sealed. Nothing ever is, although this is really well made. And there were food particles in there. It's really difficult to see. There isn't a whole lot of light. There you can see it's a long shaft, but you can't really see enough. So, and I washed out the food particles, and then I filled it with water to see how much water is dripping through the shaft here, how well it seals. It seals pretty well. Nevertheless, some food particles make it to the inside there, and those food particles get mixed up with the carbon dust from the motor's carbon brushes, and they are festering down here. So some of these rotting components, of course, do make it out, as well as they make it in, the same way they make it out from there and make it out into the food you're making. So this is 7 years old. Say goodbye to it, and that's your safest option if this falls into water.